Where do you find God? Almost sounds like a loaded question, doesn't it? I mean, if God was someone you could find, wouldn't everyone be out searching? Well, rather than looking for something elusive, like a pot of gold at the end of the rainbow, I reckon it's more about learning to recognise the way God is already present to us in our everyday lives. I'm Lizzie Oakes, and this is Where Do You Find God? My guest on the podcast today is Sam Garaway. Now, since 2014, Sam has been part of CAP, Christians Against Poverty, an incredible organisation that helps to get Kiwis out of money chaos. Sam started as a church partnership director, functioned in various roles before being appointed to the CEO in 2020. Sam, welcome to Where Do You Find God?
Thank you for having me. What a great intro. Thank you.
Well, actually, you have your own personal experience of money chaos with your family growing up. Can you touch on that a little bit for us today?
Yeah, absolutely. That's casting us back. So, yeah, I grew up watching my parents sort of lose, from a financial sense, like lose it all, and found ourselves living in a one-bedroom granny flat, and my bedroom was a garden shed beside that. So I got a first-hand experience of the ripple effects and the wider impact of that. You know, it was never around the dollars that impacted me in that way, but I saw my parents unemployed. I saw the strain on marriage. I saw the frustration that they had around not being where they wanted in life. I experienced the shame for myself when, you know, you don't want to invite friends over to you, hang out in your garden shed. And so I got to sort of that first-hand experience of like, oh man, money impacts everything growing up as a kid. And I think, yeah, I've always wanted to be part of seeing people live life to the full and step into fullness and freedom in whatever capacity that looks like. Obviously with our faith, that's a big part, but that experience certainly shaped and left an imprint on me of understanding, the way that money flows through absolutely every aspect of what we do.
Yeah. I've heard you say, well, I've read something that you wrote, and it says, if it is an adventure I am in, both personally and in the workplace. What does that mean to you, adventure, particularly in your personal life?
Yeah, I think there's something in the challenge that for me I'm wired for. I can't help it. And doing something that will test you and draw on your strengths and expose your lack of strength in different areas that I've always been up for. So personally, that often looks like being out in nature and creation, in the water, on the water, under the water, getting out and enjoying the cathedral of creation that God has for us, and in the workplace as well. Like, I'm not your maintenance guy. I'm not your guy who's just going to give you a steady, like, I'm there because I want to be part of achieving something and be part of something bigger than myself.
You sound like a really fun CEO. Our CEO at work's a bit similar. So,
yeah.
Sam, in Acts chapter 17, verse 27, it says, God intended that they would seek him and perhaps reach around and find him, though he is not far from each one of us. So my question for you today, Sam, is where do you find God?
Yeah, well, I think maybe jumping off that adventure question is I probably find God in an aspect of the challenge and the hard. You know, there's a saying I heard once of, you know, God begins where we end. And I think I've learned that to be quite true of myself. And I don't know if that makes me therefore pursue spaces where I'll quickly find the end of myself. But certainly know it to be true that God begins at the end of myself. And so I think, I mentioned creation. There's something for me about being in that cathedral of creation that makes me feel, and significance not the right word, but it's more about the grandeur that creation has that sort of puts me, or gives me the perspective of my place and space and I probably start my finding of God in that place of awe, you know, in that space of, oh, wow.
Yeah.
That is probably often my entry point, and that grandeur helps. And then probably also find God quite quickly in the in that day-to-day detail where you're like, really, God? Really? You know, that circumstance that's like happening that you just go like, nah, that's too good to be true, or that's too providential or coincidental, and so I guess learning that like God is in that grandeur but also in that granular at the same time is is part of where I find God. Yeah.
I find it interesting because, I've interviewed you on the radio a few times and first time here on the podcast. And, you talked to me about some parts of your childhood to me that actually sound really traumatic. Yet you describe yourself as a person who's really comfortable with being out of your comfort zone. How does that work?
Yeah.
Because for some people, when you've had some, challenges, as a lot of us have, it can make you the opposite, that you want the guardrails, you want everything secure, a little bit of a sense of a control freak, just to have that sense of safety within yourself. But you seem to be polar opposite to that.
I think there's probably multiple things contributing to that. There is a natural wiring, probably, that I am optimistic and positive and maybe a bit more hardwired. I mean, what did I say before? The challenge is good, and the pursuit of challenge. And I think that's not everyone's experience. Then there's in my childhood, there was a distinctive moment where I would walk to the house beside us to sometimes have a shower just around hot water. Like, our place was so small, right? So I'd walk outside, walk across the driveway. And
how many years actually was that time of your life? Can you remember?
Yeah, a couple of years, 2 years. I was sort of 12 at the time. And I remember coming back, it was dark, and I was standing on this driveway, in the cobbles. And I remember just the sense from God of, I've got you. And it was an incredibly shaping moment for me. And again, that's where I talk about like God's in the granular. What? Do you see me? Look, I'm talking dressing gown and big tiger feet slippers on a cobblestone driveway in Tauranga. And a sense of seenness, and you've got me, and it's going to be okay, and reassurance. And that was through both looking up at the stars, and so there's that creation piece in it, but also through a song that we'd been singing at school assembly. But in using that, God using those lyrics that were going through my head.
What was the song? You don't have to sing.
It was. I can't sing to save myself, and I won't embarrass myself in that way.
No one can see
but I remember the line more than the song. But it was an old song, and it talked about at the end of the storm is a golden sky, and the sweet, sweet song of the lark.
Yeah, I know that song. Walk on.
Yeah, through the wind, walk on through the rain.
Yeah, it's from a musical.
And so, and I remember this. I remember those words being very distinct for me, and so. That's probably quite a formational moment of like in the hard, in the unknown, God showing up with a thought that finds me to think it with this looking up to the stars, feeling insignificant, and the grandeur and the granular. So some of those things that I've been talking about sort of stem from, that's one experience, but also some of the other wiring.
There's some other lines to that song, and it says, "And you'll never walk alone."
Oh yeah. It's I'm trying to think of the song now.
When you walk through a storm, hold your head up high, and don't be afraid of the dark. At the end of the storm is a golden light, and the sweet song of the lark.
Yeah, I never knew what a lark was.
Yeah, it's a bird, isn't it? Yeah, but at the end of it, it says, "And you'll never walk alone." I think it might be from a musical called Carousel. I remember it at high school.
Yeah,
that's a powerful moment. So in a moment in time, and 12, 13, that's big changes in you hormonally and all the things heading into teenagehood, and things around you, this great sense of uncertainty. And yet what you're describing to me, a moment in time where you felt seen and comforted by the creator of the universe, and he was informing you that you're not alone.
Yeah. And so back to your point of like, was that traumatic? It's almost like God completely flipped that on its head and was formational for me in my understanding of who this God is that we follow and worship. And then you combine that with, sort of natural dispositions and then things that you choose to nurture around that through that experience. And here I am now, however many decades later of still finding myself connecting with God in that granular, end of yourself, challenge yourself, and a confidence, I think, to walk into those spaces because I know that God will be in there because he's proven that to me.
Yeah, I mean, he proved that to you at one probably the hardest times in your life.
Yeah.
And it's like, well, if you can perform God under those circumstances, you can deal with anything.
Yeah, exactly. And so, it was, very formational time, very formational.
That is just so beautiful. And you're a father?
I am a father. Yes, 3 children, 2, 4, and 6 currently. So that is another space where you learn lots about yourself and see images of, this is what it must be like for God. Like it takes me that long to learn a lesson, or I'm clearly not listening. But it's definitely a mirror to understand aspects of the character of Father God and back to myself at the moment. Yes.
Yeah. So you describe this wonderful God and how he's been there for you and how you can go off on adventures and be brave. And how would you describe him just for you? Like, what's this God like?
I think I've got an interesting mix of reverence and friendliness that I approach God with. There's and again, maybe that's the common thread through this. There's this friendliness, this knownness, this closeness, but this reverence that I never want to forget myself in the scale of the story we're talking about here and the significance of it and the power of it, you know, and so I think that is confounding, to be honest, when we think about trying to understand, pretending like we can understand, you might even say, around who and how God is with us.
Yeah. Sam Garaway, thank you for joining me today on Where Do You Find God? Tune in every Wednesday afternoon at 4:30 on Sanctuary, or listen and subscribe via your favourite podcast platform and give us a review so others can find us.